Hello, everybody. My name's Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hello, everybody.
And we're with the Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer tips, insights, ideas, and examples of how small, emerging, and challenger brands can build their business. Everything from determining if you're ready to grow, where to start, how to prove it online, how to go about securing distribution at a national retailer, driving your business through to the end consumer, and how to go about finding an investor if that's important to you. The bottom line is Tracy and I have been doing this for a long time. We've made a lot of mistakes. We've done a few good things along the way. And if we can help smooth out your journey on the road to retail, we'd love to help. Tracy?
Yeah, absolutely. So like Bruce mentioned, we have 30 plus years in what we call commercial operations. And what we mean by commercial operations is marketing, sales, acquisitions, divestitures, product development, managing brokers, managing distributors, you name it, we've done a lot. And that's our goal, is to share those experiences with our Road to Retail audience targeted to small and emerging and challenger brands. And then also from time to time on our episodes, we invite colleagues, friends in the industry to come on to the show and to share with the audience their insights and experiences. And we find that that's really a valuable thing that we offer on our podcast. So Bruce, tell us a little bit about who we have today.
Oh, we have a very interesting guest and a new friend of the show, Mr. Chris Sadler, who's a founder at Roads Brewing here in South Central Virginia. I keep checking Chris's website for jobs. I'm ready to be taste tester at any time, and so far that hasn't come up. But Chris, welcome to the show, and why don't you give us a little more background on what you've done and how you became a beer tycoon?
Well, thanks very much. Very glad to be here. Beer tycoon is kind of the last. It started in an interesting sort of a fashion. My background, I grew up in Southern Louisiana, I think as you alluded to earlier off air, and went to school in Tennessee, wound up working as an investment bank, real estate investment banker in Houston, New York, London, just to paraphrase quickly. Got tired of that business, went out on my own, and as a part of that moved to Southern Virginia as a part of a business we have out of Richmond. And that's really how I got involved in the brewing business. Started or founded Roads Brewing in 2017 after living in Farmville, Virginia for 4 or 5 years, and really started it to spur some economic development in the restaurant, bar, nightlife scene. Farmville's a very interesting town, small, 8,000 people. 4,000 of which are university students in the college. The town seemed to be inoculating itself against being a college town. So we started the brewery really to prove to others that it could be done, that there was a market. And so that's kind of how Three Roads came to be. We've since expanded, and I don't want to go through the whole thing. We got invited to do Lynchburg, thought Lynchburg would be great. It's 10 times as large or 10 times the size of Farmville. Then we opened a very big brewery as compared to the Farmville location. And now we have the tail wagging the dog, where we have lots of manufacturing capacity, and it's all about sell, sell, sell.
Well, Tracy and I have heard that a lot. Tracy?
Absolutely. So Chris, our audience, like we've mentioned, is, small emerging brands, and we talk a lot on our show about, differentiation in the market. So we'd love to hear your backstory on, really how you got started, what gap you saw in the market, and how your plan was to fill it.
Well, I really wish that we had done that kind of planning, right? We did not aim for a gap in the market. I mean, realistically, 5 of us got together and said, what can we do for Farmville? How can we start something? We all liked beer. The brewery industry was in the midst of, or well into, really opening up. And, the laws changed, which helped us, and helped the craft brewing business, dramatically, because it allowed us to essentially open a manufacturing facility, but then sell, in our tap room, which is, was, the front of the manufacturing facility. So it's like we produced the stuff in the back room. They allowed us to sell it in the front room, which gave us full retail pricing. and that allowed, the smaller craft brewers to pop up. And so that's how we looked at it. There was nothing in Farmville. We thought we'd just open a pub and a brewery in Farmville, and that would be that. And so that's really what we set out to do. And I had spent some time in London, as I think I alluded earlier, and was really enamored of the English pub, which is really a meeting place for all walks of life. And you'd go into a pub and you'd see a bus driver next to a punk rocker, next to a model, so to speak. They all came together in that one place, and so really wanted to try to create something along those lines in our tap room. And we were very fortunate. We hired a brewmaster to, at the outset, that is an exceptional brewmaster and brews very good beers, and that really set us up for success, because if you don't have a certain quality of liquid, then the marketing part becomes next to impossible.
True.
Question. I'll get carried away here.
Yeah, no, that's great. Hey, Chris. So when we deal with other brands that are a bit more quote unquote traditional, and they think about distribution, it's like, gosh, I got to get a meeting with a Kroger buyer, et cetera, et cetera. Can you just walk the group through the added complexities of, the U.S. distribution system for beer? We had a gentleman on, Doug Hall, who has a custom whiskey business, and Doug talked a little bit about that. But if you could just give people a sense of the hurdles that you have to go through, that would be, I think, really helpful. And my follow-up question, so you can be thinking about it, would be, given all of that, how do you guys compete with the big guys as you try to do some business outside of your 3 tap rooms?
Very good question. So let's talk about the 3-tiered system that is the alcohol beverage control. It came about about the time of the end of Prohibition, and the idea is you got a 3-legged stool. You've got manufacturing, you've got distribution, and then you've got retail sales, and never should the 3 meet. So we can't, prior to this loosening of legislation that allowed for the craft brew industry to really prosper, we couldn't brew and sell. So here, at the tap room, we're really based in the manufacturing and in the retail business. And so that's what opened up. But really, from a product distribution standpoint, we are required to sell. We have to have a distribution company between us and the retailer. So we sell to the distributor. The distributor then sells to, I'll air quote, sells to the retailer and delivers to the retailer. So the difficulty is that we're separated from our ultimate client to some degree. And so we don't have much opportunity to touch the retailers directly, but particularly the customers, the end consumer, unless they've seen us in our tap room or on the Super Bowl ads that we're putting out there, then we don't get to introduce ourselves to them. So it is difficult. That 3-tiered system, we are allowed, we have salesmen, brewery-owned, brewery-hired salesmen that actually go out and sell our product, but they have to give the orders back to the distributor to then be delivered. And so we still have that potential kink in the chain. And so that's somewhat difficult sometimes. I mean, if you get a pissed off sales rep or something, we're out there to help, but you can easily get somebody that works against you. You make a great presentation, get a big order at a Kroger or something like that, and then they don't deliver and you look like hell, right?
Yeah.
And then the Krogers and all that, I mean, basically we are a franchise state, Virginia is. And so the Krogers, if you want to get into the chains in Virginia, you almost have to be, represented by one of the larger distributors.
And so I have a question on that, Chris. So how do you so I'm sure the distributor has many, many beer brands. How do you tell our audience a little bit about how you get, their attention? Is it spiffs? Is it marketing? How do you differentiate yourself with the distributor and get their attention so that of the 10 brands they're trying to sell to a Kroger, they're going to sell yours?
I wish it was only 10.
Yeah.
But that is the hard part. We've picked a distributor. I think the biggest thing that we found as a benefit is we've got our own sales guys that are selling for them. So each of those reps has somebody else working for them because they still get their commissions if they sell that beer to that Kroger. And so that's a big help. We took the process, and I had talked to a couple of distributor friends. What we did is we self-distributed out of Farmville for the first couple of years. And self-distribution is illegal. So that's not really, my wife owned a distribution company that sold only 3 Roads beer. And so we did that small, and the idea there was really to prove to whoever we went to for, the bigger distributors that the brand would sell, had legs, people would buy it, but also that they would repurchase, right? And so we had, some length of relationship with several pubs, bars, restaurants, convenience stores. So, and then the real question is to get them, because they're, you've got Modelo, you've got Miller, you got the big boys, and then you really do have to fight hard to get the attention of the retailers. Now we're fortunate there is a, craft beer is a mature industry, let's call it. People seek out craft beer. So there's a local section in the local food line or the Kroger, locally produced, yada, yada. That helps us a lot.
All right.
So Chris, what?
Yeah, so basically we're pushing hard to build it to a number that we're significant. We're significant with the guys we use in Western Virginia as they tell us, but we want to be more significant. We're compared to their other crafts, we're doing very well, but we'd like to lead that.
Right.
So Chris, what marketing tactics do you and your team employ? Because unlike some brands, beer is kind of cool. It's lifestyle. It kind of says something about you. I mean, you'll see lots of people wearing a 3 Roads or a Blue Mountain or a Coors Light, t-shirt or hat. No one's wearing a Wheat Thins hoodie. And if the brand manager for Wheat Thins is out there, they can send it to me and I'll wear it on the next show.
Oh, you just opened up a can of worms, Bruce.
Exactly.
But how do you guys, on money's precious to every company, or it should be, but how do you spend your marketing dollars? Because my view, and I'm biased toward your beer, if you can get that first 1 or 2 down the hatch, I think they'll be back.
I think that's right. We've experienced that, and that's one of the reasons that so there's on premise and off premise. Off premise is, I may have this wrong backwards, but we sell cans, and that's the retailer, that's you can take home. Where the real kind of introduction to people is in the restaurants and the bar, where they're really, the commitment is a $6 or $7 pint, right? So they don't like it, it's not a big deal, they'll get another one. If they do like it, they'll get another one of ours. But that has that's a big piece of our business, is to get into the restaurants and the like. And our strategy has been to control our local market. So Farmville, everybody knows us, and I think that we've got 80% of the the taps are the places that we could have. Lynchburg, we are working on that, but we've got a big presence there. I mean, so it's really build that circle, your home base, and then you can grow out from that. We are limited as to what we can truly do as it relates to advertising, giving stuff away, et cetera. We cannot, we can't give you free beer. We can't give away beer, which would be the easiest thing to do. So we do have some tchotchkes, stickers. We have this great paper bag koozie. It looks like that. I don't know if having worked in New York for a while, everybody rode the train home. You got your 16 ouncer and they twisted it in the paper bag, and it was okay to drink that on the street. Well, so we got some paper bag koozies that fit the 16-ounce cans. But it's that thing. We do tap takeovers. We do tastings. In the various retailers. I mean, Total Wine and a number of these stores chains are quite into having tastings. It's a proven strategy. Set up a table, they buy the beer, so it's their beer. You give away 3 free 2-ounce tastes, and almost everybody walks out with a 4-pack. So it's a great ploy. So really, we're limited in what we can do, and so we're doing really social media. It's all about. So we got 2 things. We're trying to get people into the tap rooms. I mean, I've got 2 strategies. I've been talking to my marketing guy, and we're trying to create brand awareness so that when people go into the Kroger in Waynesboro, where we are not local, I've seen that label before. I've seen their promo ad, because how else are we going to compete, against all the other, not only the majors, right? The Millers and the Budweisers, the Modelo, but the other, Star Hill and Three Notched and, all the big local players. So it's a competitive field. It's a crowded field.
So Chris, as you guys are making the move into some retail stores, and I hear you on some of your what you've already told us about tactics, but one of the things with a lot of these small emerging challenger brands is, what kind of triggers were you looking for in terms of, hey, I think we're ready? Or was it just like, let's go and see what happens? I mean, how did you have a bunch of data or instinct, or were you starting to get inbound calls, or did you just say, let's go?
Just from the get-go, we knew we had to distribute. We wanted to be bigger than just our tap room footprint. We need, you look at these tanks back here behind me. I mean, that's a 7-barrel system with 2 15-barrel. The ones you're seeing here, I don't know if you can see the one right over my right shoulder is the that's right, yeah. 15-barrel is a 15-barrel fermenter, and so to brew that sort of capacity, that's a lot of beer to fill only through the tap room. So we knew we wanted to expand beyond that. And then really it's when we expanded into Lynchburg, the brewmaster convinced me that we should produce a production facility. It should be big enough. So we put in 20-barrel for 20-barrel brew house there and 40-barrel fermenters. So I mean, we can do 10,000 barrels out of that facility. So all of a sudden, now we've got to distribute. So that's I was telling you, we got a lot of manufacturing capacity, and we really need to fill that manufacturing capacity. So it's a necessity from the get-go. And really, with we know we have a good product. The beer is good. The liquid is good. And so that's a good thing to start from. And then the next question is, how do we, make people aware of it? And we just go. And that's back to the strategy of owning the markets where you're known, right? So you got the tap room in Farmville. We're a fairly, again, air quotes, big deal in Farmville. Everybody knows we're here for the most part. Lynchburg, less so, but if you own those markets, then you can start to grow it, in concentric circles as you go out.
Right. So Chris,
the whole idea of, we're trying to promote 3 roads, I said, we're kind of like, blue jeans, taste travels. It's kind of the whole about the road theme and the adventure theme. Those are the themes we're trying to put forward. And it's really a matter of trying to get people to buy into that.
And just one last question around the distribution. Can you share with the group, what kind of data do you get back from your distributors in terms of like, how are you doing? Because if there is that arm's length that, you don't get the specific feed, do you just judge it by orders, or do you get some kind of Nielsen or IRI data for the stores you're starting to get into?
Well, we get their sales data. So they will give us their sales data, and they'll give it to us by account. And so we can see if it's growing or diminishing, if they're really there are some good data models that you can track your sales, how they're going, right? What direction they're going. Are there certain kinds of stores that are doing better than other kinds of stores? I mean, for sake of discussion, we just got into Food Line, which was a big win. And we've asked our distributors to give us the top, their top performing food lines. Well, it just happens to like 270 food lines in the state of Virginia, which is rather incredible. And so, we get those top, and we go visit those guys because we think those are probably the ones we want to focus on. And then we found that we have developed over the last 10 days, really a very good relationship with the buyers at the various food lines, understanding how they work. And that's where that personal sales force comes in. And then my fear always is that, you get a food line, it's like, shit, that's great. I sell a lot of beer. Excuse me, this is not a family show, is it?
We'll edit that out. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I sell a lot of beer. Now I've got to sell that beer through, right? It's really, if my beer doesn't, so I can sell it to Food Line, they're going to be quite happy to buy 5 cases. It's no big deal, right? One of each of our main offerings. But if that doesn't sell, then I got a problem. And so that's really, so first there's the elation. We've got a big account. Next, there's the fear that, can we perform? Can we pull that beer through? And that's the real,
Tracy, go ahead and say it. One of our bumper stickers.
Our bumper sticker for Road to Retail is, it's not about sell in, it's about sell through. You're preaching it, Chris. We love that. It's absolutely not. And I love that you said it's not about just getting on that shelf in Food Line. It's about making sure that 5 cases that store, bought is going to sell through in the right amount of time, because otherwise, as you well know, they'll take it off the shelf and put put it somebody else there.
Absolutely, they will, and you'll never get that back. And that's one of
Right.
the things we're constantly fighting back, from a production operations management system, is make sure that, when that distributor comes and orders that beer, we've got to have it. Because if we don't have it and he can't put it on the shelf, then he
Right.
loses that space. So we're going to lose it forever. More
Yeah.
than likely, he's going to put another brand in there because he's got 100 brands. So he's not particularly devoted to Chris Sadler or Three Roads Brewing.
Another bumper sticker. It's a retailer, two things they don't like: one, a brand that doesn't sell, and a brand that doesn't ship. So if you can't get your beer there to the store and fill that space that you've got, you're going to be gone.
Well, and the retailers are much more concerned about their category performance. So in this instance, the subcategory of craft beer, whether that comes from Chris, which would make him very happy, or one of his competitors, the retailer's really indifferent. They'll give you a shot and then you got to perform.
That's right.
So Chris, I have an emerging vision of a print ad for you. You take the caricature of Ben Franklin with one of your cool Three Roads hats, and one of the quotes attributed to him is "Beer is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy."
That's right.
I mean, that's perfect.
I love
Tracy, what's next?
So I wanted to just provide a little color commentary here on two things that you said. One is you started, in the small little town and you owned it. And we talk about that on our podcast a lot, about starting local, own that local market, and then work your way out from there, which is exactly, what you have done. So brilliant, and hats off to you. And when you said, you own, 80% of your little town there, that is perfect. The second thing you said that I loved is, so in your world, they call it tasting. In CPG speak, they call that demos, or sampling. So right. A great strategy, getting your beer into the mouths of your consumers. They'll try it, they love it, and then they'll go and buy it in the store. So just another perfect. I love that. I love that strategy.
Tracy?
Yeah. So tell us a little bit, Chris, about what advice you would give to, let's say there's a guy, in Lynchburg that says, hey, I want to start a brewery, and I wanted to get in, and I want to get into retail specifically because that's our audience today. What advice would you give that guy starting out, saying, okay, I'm going to open this, but I really want to get into retail? What watch outs and what things would you say you got to make sure you check that box before you start?
Well, let's say it's not Lynchburg, because Chris would gangster stomp them.
I would,
a small brewer
not to do it in Lynchburg.
A small brewer starting in Lexington, Kentucky, let's say. What would you tell this person?
Sorry about that.
Yeah, not a problem. The key, I think, is, you really got to have good liquid. So the beer needs to be good, and you need to have proved that, because I have been to small breweries where the guys love the beer, and I just could not drink it, so it needs to be, and we all have different tastes. So when we see this, there's a thing out there called Untapped, and I just despise it, because what happens, and we got a fairly good rating, but somebody will come in and they will buy a lager, and then they will rate it on Untapped. Their first sentence will be, I really don't like lagers. Well, then why are you drinking that beer and rating that beer, right? But people have different tastes. Some like IPAs, some like juicy IPAs, some like lagers. And so, you need to pick a style that you can, that a wide swath of the market will like. Good quality, you need to test that quality. And then, you really need to have I don't think a startup brewery is going to get the attention of a distributor unless they have, something, on the ball. Now, there's an interesting case, Island Brewing, or Island Brands, out of Charleston, South Carolina, came out by storm. Somebody had to put a lot of money behind them. They were doing a crowdfunding sort of an outreach, and they were advertising fastest growing brand, in the country or in the Southeast or whatever. And they were taking over state by state by state, doing a lot of distribution. Now, the danger of that, back to what we talked about earlier, is I could probably hire a distributor, or in Maryland, let's say, and ship them, 100 cases of beer, and they would place it But if I'm not supporting it, then it dies on the vine, and you've really killed that relationship. So you really need to make sure that you're able to support the beer that you're putting out there.
Mhm.
So I think it's very difficult to just jump in. If you want to go
Mhm.
retail is a different business than the tap room. The margins are dramatically different. And realistically, this craft, the tap room legislation essentially allows the tap room to subsidize the distribution. So
Gotcha. So what
Yep.
you're saying is you got to really have a quality product, and you have to have a marketing plan to make sure that the product sells through to the retailer.
correct.
So to the
You're gonna have to
folks
convince,
out,
you're gonna have to convince these guys to take you on. So you're gonna need to have a war chest or something so that they know you're there for the long haul.
yeah.
Right.
So to the folks out there, thinking back to the Doug Hall episode, and Doug is a guru of new product development for probably pushing 3 decades now. If you recall, folks, Doug said that you need to bring data that you have a superior product. You can't go out there with Me Too and have a cool logo or some, famous influencer that might carry you for about 2 or 3 hours. But in the end, you need an excellent product. So Chris, moving on as you grow, and I'm unsure of this is live TV, so I'm unsure of what you've done, but what advice would you give to small emerging brands, or how did you guys go about funding your operation? When you think about raising money, like what was your approach? Like, do it all yourself and keep everyone away from you? Did you want to bring people in to kind of engender some followership in the local markets because they had some skin in the game? How do you think
That's
about
exactly.
funding?
Well, I've been very fortunate, and 90% of it is self-funded. When we started, when we started the Farmville tap room, and we have a trademark story. It's kind of funny too, but we were 3rd Street Brewing, and we went out and we raised money, and I think we got 50 investors to come in. The idea behind that was exactly as you described it. Let's involve the local market. These guys now own a tap room. This is their local bar. They'll come drink the beer. They'll tell their friends, yada, yada, yada. That was successful. I mean, we got 50, investors, but they're all very small investors, 5,000, 1,000, 500, that kind of style. And we hit that 50 mark, and that it kind of dried up, right? I mean, we kind of a lot of interest, and then it plateaued to, and so we just needed more money than that. And so I've basically funded the growth. Given some to, basically as incentives to, employees, et cetera. So really we are employee owned. Everybody here's got some shares, and I think that's important.
So given your background though, from banking and now, being in business for a long time across a number of horizons, what advice would you tell an entrepreneur in terms of like soul searching before they go out to look for money?
Yeah.
Or like, what kind of story in your banking days were you looking for? Did you want good product? Did you want someone who'd already proven themselves? Did you want like stone cold believer that was not going to be deterred?
You need a good plan. Really, you need a good financial plan, because I'm looking at, if I'm investing, I'm looking at how am I going to get out. Depends on what you're looking for. The crowdfunding market has a lot of times been, hey, you get a souvenir and a T-shirt, and you get to be one of the. Now, there's a couple of very interesting, examples. I mean, Brewdog, which is a Scottish based, I think they're 8th largest brewer in the world now. I mean, they have really gone the public funding route. They got their what is it? Punks. I can't remember the name of their investors, but they have created a whole persona. And they have a big their annual meeting every year. 5,000, 10,000 people attend. It's a big beer fest, right? And so that has become their mechanism for funding, which is make it fun and make it kind of alternative an alternative investment. So let's call it. So you got people buy 1, 2, 3 shares, love being a shareholder. They got 100,000, 200,000 shareholders. Very successful at raising money. I think it's a different. I think it's a difficult task. I think it's going to take a lot longer to become profitable, to break even, et cetera, than you might think. And so you really need to be in for the long haul. And so you really need to have a solid financial plan. If I'm investing, I'm going to want to know that that it's kind of like, the Trojan horse, oh, burn the ships that you don't have any way out other than to make this thing successful.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, Chris, before we wrap up, was there any other points you'd like to make? And if not, how could people get in touch with you or follow you, aside coming to the tap room and bring their wallet and enjoy a few delicious beverages?
I like that way the best.
Okay.
But I mean, I tell you the thing, it's a lot of fun. It is an interesting industry, the craft brewing industry, and it's very helpful. It's very collegial. I think that's very, very positive, right? I mean, people will help each other out. We're competitors, but we're friends, and we help each other at events like, oh, my ice, my CO2 is not working. Well, I have another tank. Here you go. Those kinds of things. My hose, there's
Love that.
a lot of sharing. I mean, so that's very positive, and so it's fun to be a part of that. And I think the kind of people that are attracted to the tap rooms and the like is very attractive. So I like the lifestyle. I like, the kinds of people that it attracts. I mean, like you, Bruce. I mean, that's, and then what was the rest of that question? I'm sorry.
Just how could people,
get
either
in touch
follow
with
you
me.
or reach
Well,
out or get in touch?
So 3roadsbrewing.com, the number 3roadsbrewing.com is our website. There's a Farmville and a Lynchburg, and we just bought Ballad Brewing in Danville. csadler601@gmail is my email address. That'd probably be the best way. I'd give you my
That's
cell phone.
awesome.
If I don't recognize the number, I probably won't answer it.
No, Tracy and I, we've had 2 guests give out their personal cell phones, which I thought was borderline insane, but I guess that's a key part of their business development.
What
Well,
about
look-
social media, Chris? Are you Instagram, Facebook?
Instagram, both Instagram and so the 3 Roads Brewing will get you there. 3 Roads, both that and Facebook. So we got Instagram for Farmville, Lynchburg, and so I think it's 3 Roads Brewing _Berg and 3 Roads Brewing _Farm. And then we got Ballad Brewing too, which is down in Danville. So
No TikTok. You look like you'd be a great TikTok star.
Yeah, we're not on TikTok. I mean, we probably should be.
Well, Chris, I want to thank you on coming on the show before Tracy goes into our world famous Big Finish. I can tell anyone who's wandering through South Central Virginia should visit one of Chris's facilities. And if you go for the Montgomery personal favorite of the N150, bring a napkin, knife, and fork, because that baby is a meal. That is a good taste in beverage. Tracy?
Thanks.
Well, there's
Thanks,
an
guys.
endorsement right there. I love it. Well, thank you again, Chris, for being on our show. And thank you, audience, for joining us. And we appreciate all the followers that we've been getting lately, and continues to follow us on our podcast, on Spotify, on iTunes, and also on our LinkedIn page. So continue to follow us, and look forward to posting this episode in the near future.
Thank you. Good luck out there, folks.